That's my story anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I'm glad I asked that question because that's my job to get people's story,
Uh-huh.
My next question to you is, what is the most challenging part for you being a comedy writer?
Well, the most challenging, and the reason why I finally said enough of that, I started getting into internet towards in the beginning of the 21st century, I guess. I was very fortunate. I was able to write comedy. I really didn't know how I did it. I had no techniques. I know writers who do have techniques. They take a certain, to write comedy, they do this, they do that. There's a little routine they would do. But I really didn't know how I wrote comedy. When I did start writing scripts for either Alice or when I wrote a Three's Company, I would start a script and say, "What the hell am I doing? I don't know how to write I don't know how to write a joke." I would just know that I was paid. My agent got me the job, and I had to do it. There was a check waiting for me at the end of the script payment, and I would just write. I'd write 3 pages a day, 3 or 4 pages a day. No matter how bad the material was, I would just write it. I didn't censor myself. Most of it wasn't funny initially. Then I go back the next day and go back to the first page and rewrite those first 3 pages and then write another 3 pages. And the first 3 pages might be a little bit better, but the following 3 pages were just as awful as the other ones were. I was always worried somebody would see one of my uncompleted scripts and they say, well, he's a comedy writer. So I would just keep rewriting. I'd always start from page 1 and as I did additional 3 pages every day or 4 pages, whatever, and I keep rewriting it over and over again and never censoring myself. And then somehow, by the time it was finished, I had a funny script. But the challenge is when you're writing sitcoms, or I would guess variety shows, or like Saturday Night Live, there was a live audience out there watching the show in most cases. Laugh-In did not have an audience, but Three's Company certainly did, as did other shows I worked on. And you'd have your rehearsals, and you'd get it as best as you could do it with your cast. They'd read the script, and if they didn't like a line, you had to rewrite it. That was quite different in animation. The actors would just come in and read the script, and they didn't really have any changes for the most part of your jokes. They were just happy to record it and leave. Whereas if you're on camera, you have more concerns about the script. So that was one of the challenges. The actors themselves would have their notes, unless you're doing a cartoon script, and those notes were very rare. And you'd have to constantly rewrite it. But the big test came on the day of the taping. Usually there was 2 tapings on the day of a taping. There'd be one in the afternoon, which was called The Dress, and then we'd have the official live show recorded in the evening. But they taped both episodes, both versions of it. But if the audience was not laughing, you had a live audience you had to deal with. Even though you might have a laugh track that you added to it later on, your audience had better laugh at your script or you were in trouble. So, whereas if you were a dramatic writer, hey, I could write drama if I wanted to because nobody has to laugh. They're either sitting there being excited about the action or they're crying. But laughter, to create laughter, especially when you're doing sitcoms, is a big challenge because not that you will be fired the next day, but I remember the very first show I wrote was for a show called Mr. T and Tina. You'll see it in books as among one of the worst sitcoms ever, but it was a wonderful cast that was starring Pat Morita, who was the guy on Happy Days. They gave him his own show, and he had a good cast.
Mm-hmm.
And it was produced by Bob Carroll and Madeline Davis, who were the writers from I Love Lucy. So I turned in a spec script to a friend of mine who was working on that show, and they gave it to one of the other writers who wrote almost all of the My Three Sons episodes. He was almost the only writer for My Three Sons. He had a big background, and he read my script, and he really liked it. He said when he was reading my script, they were hearing laughter coming from his office. He said most of the scripts that came in were just dreadful. He hated reading them because they were just so awful. So my script, my spec script, they liked it so much, they met with me, and that's how I met Bob Carroll and Madeline Davis from I Love Lucy. And then they later on produced Alice, so they brought me on to Alice. But so there's my script. My spec script. Then they brought me in, I guess, as also a rewrite, a staff writer, where you rewrite other scripts, punch them up, make them better. So when it came time to record my episode of Mr. T and Tina, it was episode like number 12 or something, the one that I wrote on spec, and they paid for it, of course. Mm-hmm. But we were in the green room, which is downstairs, and at that particular studio was downstairs from the stage. It was an ABC Center. I forgot where that was located, but we were downstairs. That's where the green room was, and the show was upstairs. Mm-hmm. The laughter that came from my script vibrated the room downstairs. I was with the other writers down there, and here I was, this new kid, relatively new. I did do Laugh-In, but this is my first sitcom, and they were very experienced in sitcoms. It was literally vibrating the room. So, but that's the kind of reaction you want to have when you're writing these shows. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the writers who have tricks, they knew this is a guaranteed laugh, I guess, In my case, I really never knew what I was doing. I just did it. Somehow it just came from organically for me, my comedy. I had no methods. I know writers who do have methods, but I didn't. And so that's the challenge of the kind of writing that I got into, because it required a laugh from a live audience, unless I was writing cartoons, and there were no live audience there. But mm-hmm. but my cartoons were never rewritten. They always liked them at that point, because I'd already, I knew what I was doing, and rarely would I have a rewrite on any of my cartoon scripts. It was like writing Pulp Fiction. I wrote so much of them, because there was a lot of cartoon writing in those days, and because I wrote He-Man, which is another story, because when we finished writing the Fat Albert scripts, Filmation said, okay, next week we go back to writing He-Man. I said, thank you very much, goodbye. I said, if I don't know how to write Fat Albert, I certainly don't know I didn't even know who He-Man was. I'd see these pictures of him on the wall, but I had no idea what he was all about. I had no interest in He-Man. So I was saying, goodbye. I said, no, we want you to write some He-Man's with a little humorous slant to him. So I said, all right, They gave me the Bible, and it was such an involved Bible to read over the weekend. I had no idea what it even meant and how it related to the actual scripts they gave me, but I had a weekend to read the Bible. So I figured, okay, here's what I'll do. They want kind of funny He-Man. So I said, He-Man will be, I'll base him on Fat Albert, but with muscles. Mushmouth was whatever. Skeletor, I'll base him on Bill Cosby, who was really a pretty unpleasant person when he would come in to do his live action sequences. So I said, I'll make Bill Cosby will be Skeletor, Mm-hmm. So that got me through about 3 or 4 He-Man scripts till I left and wrote Baron St. Bears, which was more my type of comedy. But I'm a hero in the He-Man world. I mean, I should say I'm a hero or a villain. Some people felt my scripts, particularly the one I wrote about a circus with He-Man, were sacrilegious to He-Man's the way the show should be. But I must tell you, some of my weird, funny characters, when I go to a He-Man convention, I have some fans for those non-traditional He-Man characters. So it's all quite funny and interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, He-Man, that was a good show, and so was, Laugh-In. Two major different shows you did, but they were both iconic,
Yes, they were. So Laugh-In, of course, propelled my comedy writing career with that credit, and He-Man got me tons of cartoon work, even for cartoons that I had no business writing. Somebody had me writing several episodes of a cartoon called Rambo, and I said, please, I have why did you even want me to write this show? I don't know anything about Rambo and all these guns he uses. They had to tell me which guns he used because I would put the wrong gun. They said, you don't use this gun for that or that gun. So they would have to replace the guns that I used because I didn't have the right ones. But I wrote a lot of shows. So it was because of He-Man, because it was a groundbreaking toy-based show. So I wrote tons of shows of that style, 5-day-a-week shows. It was really like writing pulp fiction. I really think I wrote better comedy in my cartoons than I did in my sitcoms because whatever I wrote got on the air pretty much. So I had when you're writing comedy, particularly in a sitcom or in the case of Laugh-In, well, not so much to Laugh-In, you get into competition with your other writers. They always were trying to improve your script. Here's a better joke, or they would rewrite it. The head writers would rewrite your script or whatever. With cartoons, in my case, with the cartoons, whatever I wrote got on the air. So I knew if I wrote a joke, it got on the air. And it was my joke. It wasn't somebody's rewrite. And it was exactly how I wrote it. So somehow I think that was really a good training period for me, even though I had plenty of years' experience writing non-cartoon.
Yeah. Do you still do comedy writing? Are you still writing? No.
I finally told my agent I had it. I just didn't want to write it anymore. I was very getting involved in the internet in those days, finally. And I said, that's it, I've done enough of this comedy writing. And but then I got a call, one more call. She says, well, the guy that did Alf, they're doing a cartoon, and they've asked for me, so can you at least, meet with them? So I went to a meeting with the guy from Alf, Super Dave, or whatever. It was either Super Dave or the guy from Alf. Anyway, I think it was Super Dave, yeah. Mm-hmm. And not Alf, although I did meet with him one day. Anyway, so I go into this room with all people that I knew, all the behind-the-scenes people, the producer, and Super Dave was there. I don't know why he asked for me. And I said, oh, my God, what am I doing here? This is exactly what I don't want to do. I mean, I knew them all. We were very friendly, but I just didn't want to do it anymore. So that was my last cartoon. And then I was very excited about the Internet and e-commerce. That's what I do now. I do Shopify sites. But I still do comedy, though, occasionally for myself, because now with the Internet, you can do your own stuff. Mm-hmm. So I'll get some friends together, we'll do some videos and things like that. But it'll be for myself, not for somebody else. I made enough money for other people, and not that I'm going to make any money from my own comedy, but it was like enough of that. I knew I could write whatever the producer wanted. I knew how to skew it towards that producer. I knew how to deal with certain actors or actresses who were maybe difficult or had their own ideas about the show.